Alright guys, hope you're all well. Just gonna do, before I do any more videos, just a quick catch up on where we've been the last couple of weeks. Had 4 matches to speak about since I last done a video. I had the last round of the Commercial Champs at Barston. We've had the Dynamite in the Mix match at Hayfield, and then we had a 2-day at Rookery at the weekend. My wife fished a 2-day as well, so that's why I didn't get a video done last week. I was busy getting her prep done. She's only ever fished really the matches at Floatfish, so we had all the gear for the big carp like that, but different fishing altogether at Rookery, so it wasn't a case of topping kit up, it was actually doing a whole new set of rigs and hook lamps and stuff, so that's why we didn't get a video done last week. But now she's got them, I can keep topping them up. We'll start at Barston obviously. Now there's the last round of the Commercial Champs. As you know, league didn't start very well for me. We were 4th at Makers, and I would like, with all my matches, I always look back and think, how could I have done better, or would the things have changed? And in all honesty, that match, whatever I'd have done, I don't think I did a lot wrong. Just had no hope where we drew. Our whole bowl in the middle was rubbish, so that was my dropper. But and then it's not been great until the last round at Meadowlands, which was obviously a lot better. Went into this round getting rid of the 4. I had 5 points, so I needed a win. Normally 8 points gets you in, but I felt it was going to be sort of 6, 7. There are a lot of people with a low score this year, and then it comes into your dropper and your weight. What you drop, it goes down to dropper next, which obviously I had a low dropper. Some people might only be dropping a 2 or a 3, and it goes down to weight. And again, I didn't have a very good weight, so I needed a section winning things to go my way, I felt, so not the ideal situation. Now, from what I could gather, I spoke to a few people, Barston has changed a lot. There's been a massive bloom of small skimmers, and it's about getting your head down. Obviously if you're on carp, you catch carp. If not, it's getting your head down and it's catching. You want the bigger ones as well, like the ones you always caught, the pound to 2 pounders, but there's a lot of like 4 to 8 ounce skimmers. So to catch a weight, it's a busy day. I actually quite fancied just drawing somewhere I could just fish for skimmers, and I've drawn peg 104. My section started at 102, 104, 106, 108, 110. Phil Cannon was winning the league and he drew 110. I knew he'd be a bit hard to beat there because he was on the end of the island, and though it's not great, it just that there's always, you're getting towards more carp up there. Where we were, it's generally skimmer fishing, so I was quite happy with that. The peg's a bit weird because you've got a big edge, like a big point comes out next to you, and then it drops, then it goes from that level that way. So wasn't sure if the skimmers had come in. That went out to about a top 6. Now we do fish till 5 in the Commercial Champs, so I went in and had my waders on, cause just sat just in the water like you do around that side. And I went round, walked round the point and cleared it all out, and it looked lovely for the edge, so I did think I could perhaps catch some carp there late. Like that last hour I've caught carp down the edge there before with a bit later time. So I fancied that, set a rig up for that. Set a rig for slapping in case they're only about. Now I've just set 3 skimmer rigs up. 2 for, I chose to fish 11 metres just to get me past that point. It's a nice distance, it's nice comfortable distance. 2 rigs, 414 and a 416. I just used the Rube Titans in all honesty, just nice visibility, nice and heavy because there was a bit of a wind on it. And then I set a 414. No, I've gone to them. The long rigs were on 10 to 12 slit in a match kit. Still decent bottoms. I fished 015 and size 14, I think it's a 16 or a 14, a 16 I think, MXC for MXC1, like the lighter of the two spade hooks. And then I've set up a one like the XL carbon for fishing short, for a top 5. Exactly the same setup, just an 016 bottom and it was 12 to 14 stick, and I was just going to throw corn there. That's how we always caught skimmers there in the past, and I thought that could be good for some bigger skimmers later on. But it was just going to be getting my head down on that. I've set up a bomb and a waggler and a feeder, and a big chuck rod as well. Set it all up just in case there were some carp about. I was going to start on the method. I didn't want to feed anywhere else straight away. Well, I tell a lie, I put some micros and corn in at 5 metres. I just wanted to have 3 5-minute chucks at like 40 metres. If you catch a carp, it's off at Barston, with it being so shallow, it is often you get one straight away just where you land and feed near it. So I wanted to have 3 chucks. I didn't want to mess around potting bait in on the 11-metre line and wasting time. So I've had 3 chucks just with a wafter and micros and ground bait on the feeder. First chuck, I've just done 5 minutes, it's gone round, I've had a little skimmer. Second chuck, nothing. Third chuck was just about reeling and I've had a proper bite, and I've had a carp, one of the smaller ones in Barston, about £4. So after that, I'd had me 3 minutes. I was going to have a couple more because I've caught carp, but I've put 6 balls of milled betaine. I mixed a lot of ground bait. I mixed 4 kilos of ground bait nearly. I didn't want to be topping up too regularly. It wasn't like I could throw it. That's how a lot of people have been catching, throwing ground bait and maggots short. But with that point, I didn't think that was going to be as good, so I went that bit further. So I didn't want to be topping up all the while, like having to cup out bait. So I mixed up a bag of milled micros, a bag of milled betaine, and one of the 2 kilo bags of green betaine. Nice, not too much feed, but smelly, nice and heavy along the bottom, sticky to ball up. It's only about 3.5, 4 foot out there, but and I've put 6 big balls in, not as big as I could get to fit in a large pole cup, with about a pint of dead maggots in at 11 metres, 6 balls, and then where I'd be dolly, but I've just put that's been on the joining me section, and then I've gone just past it and put a big cup of just dead maggots and loose ground bait, or just that bit further. You sometimes find the bigger skimmers just sit off your feed. So I've done that, gone back on the feeder, no more signs. And I thought I've had an early carp, that's a nice little start. And then next door on 102's had a carp, but his was about £13, like more typical of Barston in all honesty. Which was obviously going to be a lot of skimmers to catch up. I didn't think I couldn't do it by any means, and then he's chucked out again and it's gone straight round, and he's a 10-pounder. 2 carp for £23, and to be honest, it's really messed my match up. I've spent another half hour on the feeder. I knew I'd need another carp of my own. Didn't get one. Went really long, didn't get one. So I've gone on the skimmers, and they were there straight away. I've only had one about £1, all the rest have been like 4 to 8 ounce. You get a bite every chuck in all honesty. But once he caught his 2 carp, he's then fished for skimmers, and he was just catching them steadily. My mate next door, Dave was next door, a draw next to me. He just decided to fish for carp. He was doing no good in the league, and he's not caught one all day. He's caught one and lost it. So there weren't many carp there, but I've had to keep trying for him. I fished a bomb. I started feeding the bomb out. I was going to feed it only if needed, and it obviously was, so I fed that after an hour. Fed that quite heavy, tried it a few times in the day, and not a sign on it, no liners, no nothing. In the end, I did just get me head down on the skimmers the last hour, but I did throw a load of bait down the edge. You're allowed to throw ground bait, so I just balled it in down the edge. Never had a sign there. Typically, once the match finished, there were tails everywhere, but how often do we have that? And I've weighed the one carp and £40 of little skimmers, and there was third in section. Guy next door has won the section. He's had £80, 50, £55 of skimmers, and then 2 carp. Canning's had £75 of just skimmers, and then the others haven't had a lot. Maybe I should have just tried and catch short anyway. I never had a bite on the corn, or one bite I missed, which was probably a little skimmer. So yeah, not the end of the league we wanted. Just horrible match. My wife sat behind me and she said, "Oh, you should fish your own match." But I spoke to a few people afterwards, and a couple of people had had the same thing. Someone had got a big carp next to him, and it does throw you because I could have caught him up probably. I think if I'd have just fished short, I could have caught £80 or £90, probably won the section. But just didn't. So we won't dwell on that. And yeah, section win I would have got in the end. There were a few 6 points with 4 droppers, and I would have beat one on weight, and there was a 7 point was last in. So a bit frustrating. That just not meant to be this league that year. It's been really good to me the last few years. Won a few rounds and had a second the year before, and I've had a 5th, and yeah, it's been good. Just wasn't meant to be this year. Started off poorly and it never really got going. So yeah, a bit disappointing. On from there. On the Tuesday I had a day out filming my Matrix at Rookery on Peg 36, where I caught the £400 the other week. I know I had some nice messages off people. We went live for an hour, answered a few questions and that, and had some lovely messages from people saying how much they enjoyed it. So thanks for that, any of you, if it was for some of you. Then on Wednesday I went to Hayfield for the £10,000 match, the Dynamite one. Not been to Hayfield for 20 odd years, but no, that's the 25 years I fished the England youth team there in the ACA Masters. Obviously carp fishing was a lot different then. I've been once since. I drew in a corner on Adams in a fish over, and it's freezing cold, first fish of the year. And packed up halfway through. None of us had a bite round there, so didn't really learn a lot that day. All the talk was we wanted the Adams Lakes. As you'll have seen in the fish show the other week, it's not fishing great island, and I drew 36 Island, which is 2 out the corner. 38 is the corner looking down the lake, but I was MPEG on the day. Did really fancy it. The edge plumbed up lovely to the next platform, like 18 inches deep. Always thought the wind was coming down our way as well. Always thought I'd catch there. So set up a rig for that, for ground bait and corn down there. I've never had a bite down there, so we won't go into that. Set a bomb waggler and feeder. You can chuck to the spinner, but they've had a bit of problems there, I think, and the spinner was on all day. Didn't fancy chucking up against it. All your bait was just going to go everywhere. I did set a rod up for it, but then it was just going to be bomb and waggler. It's really deep, it's like 16 foot deep, a bit like 2 islands though, so I wasn't too fussed with that. Rig for fishing pellets short, all the same stuff here as a float fish, and then 3 shallow rigs for 14 metres. I did set up a deck rig there as well, because they do catch a few fish like that, even though it was very, very deep. You want it to be like 10 foot apparently, and I had really deep area, like the full top 4. So didn't expect that to be good, and I've started short, and I've actually had 3 fish, 3 smallish carp for about £13 the first half hour, then a couple of missed bites, then that went. So I've gone out shallow, never had a sign, started at 2 foot, went down to like my deep shallow 4 or 5 foot, never a bite. So I've gone on the deck, missed a couple of indications, then I've hooked one, foul hooked it, and lost it, like when I was down to my top kit. Gone straight back out, hooked another one, and that was in the mouth, and that's come off at the net, and then that was it. No bites, no one was catching. When I say people weren't catching a lot, there was hardly a fish being caught. And then the only place I saw fish was right outside. Fish just got my head down on a waggler as far as I could physically feed it. And after half hour I've had one about £7, and I've done it for another 3 hours. I've tried short a few times and a couple of other things, the bomb, and I've had one more bite in the next 3 hours which I missed. It was a funny little bite, just a liner I think. And the last hour I thought, I kept trying the edge, that didn't work. I thought I've got to catch short here again. And the last hour I've started to get all like, just like a light switch, like you do, started to get bites again. I've had 6 and lost one, like better fish as well, in half hour. And then the last half hour, couldn't get a bite again until the last 10 minutes. And I had 2 or 3 liners and had one. I think I had 11 carp in the end, and they've gone £56. Just won the section easy. I think £30 was next, and not even that maybe. Half the lake's blanked. It's been dreadful. So we were never going to win off there, but pay £100 for a section in that match, and then I've got a big goodie bag. Not that I'll be using the dynamite stuff, but I'm sure my wife will. So I come away feeling I'd done well really from where I was, but just wasn't. Never in the running. Adams was very poor for some as well, but Matty Higgins took it out £170, so well done to him. Yeah, just never stood a chance there, but just a good match. I thought made some good decisions. From there we were on to rookery this weekend. The 2-day, you remember the other week, pegged one raven the first night. They drew for me on the first night. That was game over. And they did the draw on the Friday night, ready for the Saturday again. And this time they've drawn me 38J. It was on J and Magpie, so I was on Magpie the second day. 38J is a great peg on one of the bends. And with how it had been fishing, I thought you'd be fishing for £300 perhaps. So I really fancied it for a big weight. It's very windy, but the wind was coming down both ways, but it sort of missed the far bank in the middle, so I could fish across, which was good. Just set up. I didn't think there was any shallow water there. I've drawn it before and it's like 3 foot over. Like this is in the winter. I've never drawn it in the summer. So I set a rig up for doing that. But then when I plumbed around, there's a tyre stood up along the far bank, just one single tyre. And right next to that, it was a lot shallower, sort of 18, 19 inches. So I never I kept the rig set up, but I never used it. I set a mudline rig up instead. Fishing across there, I was just going to fish mushy meat. Just a couple of tins for a sausage grinder, and some micros in it, and some 6mm meat in there. Just kinder that in, which is 6mm on the hook. Cast the shallow down the middle. Meat on the top 4, never had a bite there, so we won't go into that. And then the right edge. So it's right behind you again. There's a nice shallow bit there though, so I was going to fish ground bait and maggots down there, or maggots and then ground bait if needed. I've gone across, started across, and I've never had a bite for 15 minutes, which is just unheard of on there. There's normally all the fish push out to start with, and then they come short as the day goes on. You catch shallow. But when I did it, my first bite was a good carp, £8 or so, really good stamp, so I was happy with that. And then the next sort of half hour I've had 3 more, but it wasn't great, so I've gone shallow. There's an odd one moving around down the middle, and I've caught one and lost one. They were all good stamp, 5-6 pounders. Tried the meat, not a bite. The shallow clearly wasn't right though. I had that first 2 and then there was no signs at all. And I thought, 5 carp after an hour, I'm not doing very well here. And I spoke to Stuart next door, shouted down to him, and he'd had 1 bite, 1 carp. And I thought, oh, this is fishing. Didn't think there'd been a lot caught, couldn't hear a lot of splashing. Thought this is fishing a lot harder than I thought. So I'm gonna just sit it out on the mud line, be patient. So I've gone back across and I've had one after a couple of feeds, about 11 or 12 pound, a big ghosty, and then a couple of 6 pounders, and then I've had a great big one. We actually got a picture of it in the end. It's about a big common, about 17 pound, one of the biggest fish in the lake apparently. Beautiful, big, long, massive head on it, great fish. And then it's just been steady, I've just sat on it. And for 2 hours it was alright. I'm just getting an odd one and I got up to 16 fish. Mostly good stamp though, so it's decent weight. And then the sun's come right on the peg, and when it's flat can't, it just went all weird. All you got was liners. No, just didn't want to be in that sun. Colder nights all of a sudden, and while they want to be in shallow water, they didn't want that bright sun on it where it was still. So gone in the edge, tried short again, tried shallow, not worked. Gone in the edge, and again they came in there, but they just didn't want a bit. It wasn't right. I've had 3 or 4, and they were smaller, a lot smaller down the edge. Lost 3 or 4 because they were tearing straight into the reeds as soon as you looked at them. I think you were fair looking at them, they just weren't settling up, whatever you did. I just thought with 2 hours to go, the only way, I went back over, no bites. They just didn't want to be in that sun. I thought the only way I'm going to catch now is shallow, so I just sat it out shallow, just really sort of attacked it and tried to make it work. And I've had a little run, 6 or 7 fish. They were a lot smaller, they were 3 and 4 pounders and F1s. But it was just a knot, and then it went back to an odd bite, and then the last half hour it's got really good and I couldn't get quick enough. I had 10 the last half hour, and I've ended up with £162, which was second on the lake. Won the section, £110 was second, so I won the section by £50. Great start to the festival. I thought drawing a peg, good peg the first day, I thought my luck's in now. And I packed up, and then I had to go pick the missus up, pack her kit up, and most people had already drawn ready for the next day by then. There were 2 pegs left in on Magpie, peg 24 and peg 1, they're actually both in the same section. 24 is, they're not the best 2 pegs in the section, but 24 is a good peg. I've actually had my biggest ever match weight of that peg. And peg 1, which is, it'd been last this first day, and it hadn't been very good most of the week. There was a second off it one day in the section, but this section, like I say, both pegs were in the section, so I'll just talk you through the section. You've got peg 1, which is in the corner. You have got some pads. It looks lovely in a big tree, but they're just not right at the moment there. It's a bit of a feast or famine one. Peg 2's got 2 big sets of pads, much better peg. And then you're in with the rest of the bowl. It's all the pegs on the pads. In the other bowl, 24, which hasn't really got pads, but it's in that bowl. 25's got a lovely set of pads, great peg, that one section the first day. 27, which is Snag City, pegs everywhere. And then 36, where I had that big weight. So you see why you're up against it there, because it's not that it's a bad peg, it's just everywhere. All the other pegs are great. And I went in and I drew peg 1. Not great, not safe. I was confident I could catch a few there. I went and had a quick look at it before we went home. A few fish moving around there. You have got some pads at 11 metres or 13 metres. Looks good, but just no, it's not been as good as it looks. I've started off that next day. I actually set a rig up for micros and expanders on the top 5. Thought that could be good for a couple of fish while I prime my casters. I only had 1 line on it, but within a couple of minutes they were swirling in the casters, so I thought, oh, here we go. Changed that to throwing meat there. I've gone out and I've had a really good start. I've had 15 fish the first 40 minutes, quite a few F1s, but then some half and half carp as well. It was a nice start, and then it's just died. It's not been very good after that. Just caught a few that were there, and then they've sort of backed off into the bigger sets of pads. Or under the bridge, because you've got a bridge opposite you, the other end of the pads, and then that is peg 36, and they all just seem happier there. So they've gone out there. And I've really struggled then. I set up a rig for big cupping maggots down to the tree. It was the same depth everywhere, same depth down the edge and everything. So went out there, I've caught a couple of F1s, a couple of carp on that, a couple more shallow, but it was just, I could see everyone else catch some and it wasn't good. Meat short never went. And so I didn't fish a great amount. I sort of started to lose my way. I couldn't quite work out what I needed to do to catch them up, if I'm honest. I knew I wanted to catch in the edge, fed that after 3 hours. It's a weird edge there. I sat where your platform is, it comes back behind your platform there, and that was lovely. I flattened it out a bit with my hand before the start. That was about 18 inches. Thought that would be really good. But then in line with the platform, you've actually got reeds. They've been cut down, but you're fishing behind the reeds as such. And then straight away, it's the same depth as everywhere else, 4 foot. And halfway through, I thought I've got to catch in the edge. It's the only way I've got here. And I fed a couple of ground bait and a couple of casters and a few maggots in it. And then I was going to fish maggots over the top, bunch of maggots. Straight away there were signs there, not tails, but like it was colouring up. That every time you went in there you didn't get a bite. I kept trying it and trying it and trying it, and it was really frustrating. I couldn't get a bite there, so I've sat that, like the long maggot line off, because it wasn't good enough. And I've just replumbed it. It was exactly the same anyway, just in front of the reeds, again on a top 5, like the edge. Big cups of maggots in there, and I've gone on it and I've been in indication straight away. I've changed to a big one of like the Preston, the massive massive pole cups that sit on the elasticated top. And I've just fed it like that, just dumping in. I was like, I've caught 3 or 4, but then you foul hooking a few and it wasn't right. I tried throwing bait there and fishing shallow there. You could see the tails. I think they were blowing the feed out the shallow a bit, and just blowing it in and sitting in the reeds and eating it. You tried fishing shallow there, not a bite, didn't come in the edge, and it was just really frustrating. Just didn't have the right depth. You needed like 2.5 foot to 3 foot, as before on Jay. They just didn't want to be in quite that shallow water now, with the colder nights and the sun on it. And going back to Jay, everyone that had caught well on the mud or in the edge had only caught when it was in the shade, and I think that was the problem. I just didn't have the right depth. I could have done with throwing maggots in 3 or 3.5 foot, and I was fishing in nearly 5 foot. It wasn't right. Then the last 40 minutes they've come in the edge in the shallower water, and I have caught 7 or 8 big ones, weighed 105 pound, which beat one. I needed another 50 pound for another point. 205 has won the section, so miles off the pace. So I don't think I've fished a great match in all honesty, but if I had got it dead right, still wouldn't have won the section. We needed 2 points to get in and win. So yeah, just doesn't meant to be. There's been a few matches, like I say, this year that have been like that, but it's one of them things, just get on with it. I've won quite a few as well. It's just not been my year this year so far, but it could all change in an instant. We could go into Winter League and start winning lots of Winter Leagues again. I've had that before, I had a bad summer and then like all 3 Winter Leagues I fished, so yeah, not disheartened, but that's where we're at the moment. This weekend I'm just at Float Fish. Me and Liz wants to fish again. We've got our festival we're running on Float Fish in 3 weeks time, so going to just go there for a couple of weeks. Sunday I'm coaching, next 3 Sundays I'm coaching, so it's just going to be Float Fish on the Saturday the next couple of weeks. And that's where we're at. So I'm now going to do, we were asked about hook lengths. Now I know I've talked about it, but I'm going to go a bit more in depth on it. So I'm going to stop this video, start that as a new video, and I'll be back with you very shortly. Thank you.